And this is the specific measurements you would give to a wheel company to have a piece reproduced or built for you. So the last video got a great response with all the wheel tech. As I mentioned I did not get into the minute details of backspacing and offset. I really just wanted to get into the 87 to 91 Saleen wheel offset setup because that's kind of uncommon. Most people are more familiar with the three-piece sterns, and I mentioned the three-piece stern more of as a air quote here, honorable mention. But with that, I got a bunch of emails, which were awesome because there were a lot of guys who were like, hey, you left this out, right? You know, you forgot this. And then my good buddy Peter, who's got the three-piece stern, I guess, hookup for a lot of the Saleen enthusiasts, was like, you know, you mentioned this and it wasn't exactly, so anyways, there were a lot of points to that, and I needed to clarify some of those details, which I figured I would need to do, but I didn't think I would need to do it right away. But I feel like I need to do it right away because there were a lot of people that were jumping on that. What I want to do now is I want to look at specifically what offset is in a wheel. And it's very simple. I'm going to put a link to Tire Rack in the comment section down below here in the description. Check that out. That gives a really basic, I guess it's a basic understanding of what offset is. And the wheel industry uses offset as a measurement. The reality is when you get into the technical aspects of wheels and the companies and manufacturers, the constant number that you're going to see from every wheel manufacturer is offset. And that's because it gives well, in engineering terms, you have a constant in the equation, and that's what you want. The constant in the equation of wheel offset is the center line of the wheel. That is how offset is gauged. And it's broken down like this. And well, you know what, let's just turn around and I got a wheel and let's just do that. Let's look at it and talk about what's positive, what's negative, and how to calculate it. Okay, so what I have here is, it's an oddball Saleen style wheel. Now, American Racing made this wheel for regular Mustangs and many other. You can find this wheel. I've actually got a picture of, and I'll share it with you. It came from somewhere on the internet of an IROC Z28 with these on it. So they were a popular wheel in the 80s. But simple, this is simple stuff. This wheel is a 7-inch wheel, so you can see. The zero offset on this wheel is 3.5 inches. So let's just take a marker. It's 3.5 inches. So that's the center line of our wheel right here. And offset is the difference in the hub mounting face from that position in the center line. If you go towards, this is the front of the wheel. If you actually move towards the face of the wheel, that's positive offset. If you move, do an arrow there, maybe you can see that, and then an arrow here. If you move towards the back of the wheel, that is negative offset. A simple measurement, because most measurements online for wheel manufacturers are measured in millimeters. 25.4 millimeters equals 1 inch. But that's really simply it. That's how you measure the offset of a wheel. It's positive towards the face of the wheel, the front, and negative towards the back, based off the center line of the wheel. And that's it. That's all there is to that. Backspacing is challenging in that this lip here can be a different size width depending on the type of wheel and the wheel manufacturer. So because that is not a constant in an equation, in other words, that varies from manufacturer to manufacturer or from wheel style to wheel style, the center line of the wheel is what's used as the constant for that. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. But basically the offset is this. You take the wheel width, divide by 2, and then that's the center line. That's your 0 offset. And then whether it's positive or negative, it tells you which way that hub mounting surface, which is this right here, where the hub mounts, which way that moves. But that's it. That's very simple. So your offset is that right there. That's the center line, and it's negative this way, positive that way. It's simple. That's it. Hopefully that helps. And what we're going to discuss with the Saleen 3-piece wheels is the hub bore size and the bolt pattern for the lugs. Something I failed to mention in the previous video is that when you're looking for the bolt pattern or lug pattern, it depends on where you look as to what's said. Lug pattern, I think, is what would be technically correct. But you want it to be a 5, which is the bolt, number of bolts, of course, and then by 114.3 millimeters or 4.5 inches. I think most everybody outside of the US is going to use 114.3. And with the Stern wheels being from Japan, that's probably how you're going to see them advertised, because a lot of the wheels that I've found over the years have actually been overseas that fit. So you definitely want to make sure you're paying attention to that bolt pattern, lug pattern, to make sure it fits what the Mustang came with. The other is the hub on a Mustang, either 9404 or the 8793 Saleen. The hub on the 5 lug is 69.9 millimeters. We'll round it out to 70. I've measured aftermarket rotors on some of the 87 and 93 Saleens. I've seen them as high as like a little over 70 millimeters. So it depends on manufacturer. I think some of the aftermarket ones that are replaced rotors now are a little different, but the technical measurement is 69.9 millimeters for that hub. All of the wheels for the Fox Mustang are lug centric. So the bore needs to be bigger than 70 millimeters. And I think most of the 3-piece Sterns that I've gotten, the ones on this car are included in that, measure out to be 73 millimeters. The sets that I've worked on and built before, that's what I've bored them out to, is 73 millimeters, just because that's the spec that I see. Yes, it is bigger, but there's nothing to worry about as long as you tighten the lug nuts to the proper torque spec of the wheel. So that's the 2 things I did not mention in the previous video that I think are very important, and I got called out on. Because let's be honest, I did that other video. I was focused on the ARE wheels, and so I just wanted to make sure I was getting those right. But the 3-piece Stern, it seems to be a bigger demand for those, so I needed to clarify. Okay, there's something I want to clarify with the Sterns that in the previous video, I gave you specifics on the widths of each half. And in that video, I said the dimensions I gave you were the total width, including the little lip that holds the bead. So a 1/2 inch needs to be taken away from each half. I'm trying to describe this carefully because it's important, so bear with me as I think through it. But the front dimensions of the wheel on a 17x8 Stern, the outer is a 1.5 inch and the inner is a 6.5 inch. So if you add 6.5 and 1.5, you get 8. So the total width is 9 inches on that 8-inch wheel if you include the bead holding, I don't want to call it lip. I'm sure there's a technical term for it, but I'm trying to be very clear in this because the reason I want you to understand this and know this is because when you were to go to a wheel company and you bought a set of sterns and there's a damaged piece, when you talk to the wheel company, you have to give them the wheel measurement width, not the total width. It's very important. My buddy Peter actually messaged me, texted me actually, and said, hey, just so you know, this is what you said, and what I said was accurate if you include the total width of the wheel. So, to break this down, and this is the specific measurements you would give to a wheel company to have a piece reproduced or built for you. Key is wheel company having it done and then making it for you. So the front wheel, as I said, is a 1.5 hoop and a 6.5 inch barrel. That's 8 inches. In the back, the wheel in the back is a 9-inch wheel. The hoop is a 2-inch. And the inside barrel is a 7-inch. So 7 plus 2 is 9. And for quick reference, I gave you in the old video, we'll just say that the measurements I gave you, the rear was a 2.5 and a 7.5, which is a 10-inch total width. That's all the way across the wheel, not the bead mounting surface. And the front I gave you was a 2-inch and a 7-inch, which is 9 inches if you measure all the way across the wheel. So for reference, again, and I'm being very careful at saying this because it's extremely important if you're doing something that has to be repaired and you're talking to someone like Kinesis, or you're talking to someone like HRE, or if you're talking to some other major company, there's a bunch of them at Fix Wheels. Some of those companies will reproduce the barrel and the hoop for you at a significant cost, but when you talk to them, you have to give them the specific width from the bead mounting surface to the mating surface in the middle of the rim. The measurement is actually taken from right here, the bead mounting surface, to the connecting surface here. And that's very important because that's how they speak that language in those companies. To that too, if you're looking for one and you talk to a company that has used parts, that's also how they measure it. It's very important. They don't include the lip of the wheel that holds the bead at all because it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. It also varies from wheel style to wheel style. I've seen those bead lips as small as 1/4 inch on a forged wheel to make it lighter. You remove material and it becomes lighter. Racing, you definitely want only as much material as you need for it to be strong and for it to hold up to the rigors of racing. So it's just very important that you understand that. And I hope I've made that very clear. I hope it's not been very confusing because it's a big difference. I've included footage in this to show you where my thumb is marking from one edge to edge. It's very important that you understand that because if you're looking for pieces to repair wheels or if you're looking for pieces to build wheels, you've got to speak the language of the companies that have those pieces. And it's important that you know that they do not include the width all the way across the wheel. They only speak the language of from the bead mounting surface to the other side of the bead mounting surface, which in this case, 17x8 and 17x9. So I hope that helps. Don't want to confuse people. So the front 17x8 is a 1.5 inch outer hoop and a 6.5 inch inner barrel. That's 8 inches wide. The rears are a 2 inch outer hoop and a 7 inch inner barrel. So that's what gives you the 17 by 8 and 17 by 9 widths. It's not, you just don't include the lip of the wheel at all that holds the bead. Even in the measurements, when you're measuring the wheel, if you were to lay a ruler all the way across the center of it, or the face of it, it's a 16-inch wheel measures bigger than 16 inches because it's actually the diameter of that is where the bead of the tire sits. So that's just, you've got that little piece that holds the tire, it holds it on the rim. That's not included in the measurements when you're talking to companies. Even when we discuss some 16-inch wheels, 17-inch wheel, they all measure bigger than that number because that little lip has to hold the bead in place. But I hope that's cleared up any confusion. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, comment below. I would definitely like to make sure I get this right for you guys because it's very important to me. And I greatly appreciate all of my brethren who have come forward with, hey, you left this out. Hey, you need to remember to talk about this. So I love that about the community that we are in, especially as Saleen owners, because the devil's in the details is the best way to put it. And it's important, especially when you're trying to put together a very expensive set of wheels. Very expensive set of wheels nowadays. So anyways, as always, whether you're driving them or restoring them, always enjoy them. Peace.